My name is Samantha Wilson, and at 34, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Then my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. You weren't invited to dinner. Your brother's girlfriend doesn't like you. I stared at those words, my stomach turning to ice. The same parents whose business I had saved with my $320,000 investment were now excluding me because of someone who'd been in our lives for 8 months. I replied with one word, okay. Then I opened my laptop and began canceling payments and deleting receipts. All 101 of them. Before I continue this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about setting boundaries with family. Now, let me take you back to the beginning of how my family's betrayal unfolded. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, the older of 2 children. My parents, Robert and Linda Wilson, worked tirelessly to provide for us, though money was often tight. Dad bounced between various management positions while Mom waited tables at a local Italian restaurant. Despite their financial struggles, our home was filled with love and laughter. My younger brother Jason and I were inseparable growing up. For years younger than me, he was my shadow, following me everywhere and looking to me for guidance. I helped him with homework, taught him to ride a bike, and defended him when neighborhood kids were unkind. We shared inside jokes and secret languages that drove our parents crazy. I thought nothing could ever come between us. Our parents, while loving, had different expectations for each of us. For me, it was academic excellence and self-sufficiency. For Jason, they were more lenient, often saying, "That's just how boys are." Still, I never felt resentment. I loved my role as the responsible older sister and took pride in my achievements. School came naturally to me. I graduated high school as valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to Northeastern University's business program. My parents beamed with pride at my graduation, Dad proclaiming it the proudest day of his life. Mom cried happy tears, saying, "You're going places, Sammy." College was transformative. I thrived in the competitive environment, interning at top consulting firms while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Upon graduation, I received multiple job offers and accepted a position at a prestigious consulting firm in Boston. Starting salary, $90,000, more than my parents had ever made combined. By 28, I had climbed the corporate ladder to become the youngest senior consultant in my firm's history. Clients requested me specifically, impressed by my strategic thinking and problem-solving abilities. My boss frequently said, "Sam has the Midas touch. Everything she handles turns to gold." At 30, I took the biggest risk of my life, leaving my secure position to start my own consulting business. Everyone thought I was crazy, everyone except my family. "You've always been a leader, not a follower," Dad said supportively. Mom added, "If anyone can do it, it's you." My risk paid off beyond my wildest dreams. Within 18 months, my client list included Fortune 500 companies. I hired a team of consultants and moved into a sleek office in downtown Boston. Financial freedom came with my success. I purchased a beautiful condo overlooking the Charles River and finally paid off my parents' mortgage as a Christmas surprise. The look on their faces when I handed them the paperwork is something I'll never forget. It was around this time that my parents shared their dream of opening their own restaurant. After decades of working for others, they wanted something of their own. "A small Italian place," Mom explained, "with your grandmother's recipes and a family atmosphere." Dad had found a location, a struggling restaurant in our old neighborhood that was up for sale. The timing couldn't have been worse. The economy was shaky and restaurants were failing at record rates. Their savings would cover barely half the purchase price, let alone renovation costs and operating expenses. Banks had already rejected their loan applications twice. "We understand it's a long shot," Dad said, disappointment evident in his voice. "We'll just keep saving and try again in a few years." That night, I ran the numbers. With my business thriving, I could afford to help them without compromising my financial security. I created a business plan, projecting costs, potential revenue, and return on investment. The next morning, I called my parents. I want to invest in your restaurant, I told them. Not a loan, an investment. I believe in you both, and I want to be part of making your dream come true. There were tears, protests, and finally acceptance. We'll pay you back every penny, Mom promised. Dad added, this will be a true family business, decisions made together. Jason was thrilled about the restaurant. Recently graduated with a general business degree, he had been struggling to find his path. This is perfect timing, he said. I can help manage the place. Over the next 6 months, I invested $320,000 to purchase and revitalize what would become Wilson's. My parents were overjoyed, and Jason seemed grateful for the opportunity. Little did I know this investment would lead to the most painful lesson of my life. My $320,000 investment in Wilson's wasn't a lump sum, but a carefully planned financial strategy spread over 3 years. The initial $200,000 covered the purchase of the failing restaurant, with the remaining $120,000 allocated for equipment, renovations, marketing, and operating capital until the business became self-sustaining. My attorney advised creating a formal business agreement, but when I mentioned this to my parents, they seemed hurt. We're family, Samantha, Dad said, his voice strained. Do you really think we need legal papers between us? Mom added, your grandmother would roll over in her grave if she knew we were signing contracts with our own daughter. Against my better judgment, I relented. We drafted a simple agreement outlining my 30% ownership and profit-sharing arrangement, but it remained unsigned, filed away in my desk drawer. Family trust would be enough, I told myself. With the restaurant secured, I applied my business expertise to transform the space. I hired an award-winning local designer to create a warm, inviting atmosphere that honored traditional Italian aesthetics while feeling modern and Instagram-worthy. The renovation cost $80,000 to $30,000 more than budgeted, but the results were spectacular. The kitchen received a complete overhaul with $120,000 in state-of-the-art equipment. This is better than what they have at the Ritz, Dad whispered during installation, his eyes wide with disbelief. I reminded him that quality tools would enable efficiency and excellence, values that would define Wilson's. Marketing was my specialty, and I invested $70,000 in a comprehensive campaign. I created a compelling brand story centered on authentic family recipes passed down through generations. We hosted a grand opening that attracted local food critics and influencers. I designed seasonal menus that photographed beautifully for social media and trained the staff to encourage photo sharing with a custom hashtag. The remaining $50,000 served as operating capital for the inevitable slow periods and unexpected expenses. I established accounting systems, tracking every dollar with meticulous attention. Each expense had a corresponding receipt in my digital filing system, eventually totaling 101 separate transactions. We established weekly management meetings every Monday morning. I'd arrive with data analysis, marketing updates, and strategic recommendations. My parents initially embraced these meetings, implementing my suggestions and celebrating the resulting growth. In the first year, Wilson's revenue increased by 40%, unprecedented for a new restaurant. Jason took on the title of floor manager, drawing a modest but fair salary of $55,000 annually. I created systems and training manuals to help him succeed, spending weekends teaching him about inventory management, staff scheduling, and customer service best practices. You're making this so easy for me, he admitted one night after closing. I don't know what we'd do without you. His gratitude seemed genuine, though his involvement remained minimal compared to his title. He often missed our Monday meetings, citing oversleeping or other vague excuses that our parents readily accepted. I hired key staff members, including Chef Antonio, whose culinary skills elevated our family recipes to new heights. I negotiated favorable contracts with suppliers, reducing food costs by 15% while maintaining quality. Every aspect of the business received my professional attention, from the reservation system to the customer feedback mechanism I implemented. Despite providing professional services that would have cost clients hundreds of thousands, I never charged my family a consulting fee. My reward was seeing Wilson's succeed and my parents' pride as they welcomed guests to their restaurant. Local publications featured Wilson's in Best of Boston lists, and reservations became increasingly difficult to secure. By the end of the second year, the restaurant was profitable enough to increase my parents' draw. They took their first vacation in 15 years, a 2-week trip to Italy to explore culinary traditions firsthand. I covered the restaurant in their absence, working 16-hour days while maintaining my consulting business. Throughout this period, I maintained detailed records of every expenditure, equipment maintenance, additional marketing campaigns, special events, staff bonuses, and countless smaller expenses. Each receipt was meticulously cataloged in my digital system, representing my ongoing commitment to my family's dream. "You've given us more than money," Mom said on their return from Italy. "You've given us dignity and purpose." Dad added, "This place wouldn't exist without you, Sammy." Their words warmed my heart, reinforcing my belief that mixing family and business could work with sufficient love and respect. How wrong I was. The first time I met Amanda Harrington was at a Sunday family dinner at Wilson's, about 2.5 years after we opened the restaurant. Jason arrived late, as usual, but this time with a petite blonde woman in tow. "Everyone, this is Amanda," he announced, his arm draped around her shoulders. "We've been seeing each other for a few weeks." Amanda was 29, stylishly dressed in a way that suggested careful attention to trends without appearing too eager. She had an infectious laugh and the kind of confidence that filled a room. "I've heard so much about all of you," she said, extending her hand to me first. "Especially you, Samantha. Jason says you're the family genius." I warmed to her immediately. After years of Jason's string of short-term girlfriends who seemed more interested in free meals than meaningful conversation, Amanda was refreshingly engaged. She asked thoughtful questions about the restaurant's history and complimented specific elements of the decor that I had personally selected. "I actually have a background in hospitality management," she mentioned over dessert. "I worked for the Fairmont Hotel Group for 3 years and managed a bistro downtown before taking my current event planning position." My parents were clearly smitten. Mom kept refilling Amanda's wine glass and sharing embarrassing stories about Jason's childhood. Dad, usually reserved with Jason's girlfriends, gave her a full tour of the kitchen, introducing her to the staff as Jason's special lady. After dinner, as we closed up the restaurant together, I mentioned to Jason how impressive Amanda seemed. "Yeah, she's different," he agreed, a rare softness in his expression. "I think she might be the one, Sam." Over the next few months, Amanda became a regular fixture at family gatherings. What started as casual appearances evolved into her attending our Monday business meetings. "Amanda has such great insights," Jason explained when I raised an eyebrow at her presence. "She understands the restaurant business." Initially, I welcomed her input. She suggested seasonal cocktail specials that proved popular with younger patrons. She proposed a weekend brunch service that, after implementation, increased our revenue by 8%. Her industry contacts helped us book several large corporate events. But subtle shifts began occurring around the 6-month mark of their relationship. During a business meeting, I presented data showing our dinner service efficiency had decreased. I recommended adjusting staffing to address the issue. Actually, Amanda interjected before my parents could respond. "I think the problem is your reservation system. It's outdated." At my previous restaurant, we used a different platform that eliminated these issues. Before I could explain that our system had been carefully selected for our specific needs and staff capabilities, Dad was nodding enthusiastically. "Amanda has a point, Sam. Maybe we should look into this new system. I agreed to research the alternative, though our current system wasn't the problem. The data clearly showed it was a staffing issue. When I presented this finding the following week, Amanda wasn't present, and my parents accepted my recommendation without question. This pattern repeated with increasing frequency. When Amanda attended meetings, my professional assessments were questioned. When she was absent, my family valued my expertise as they always had. One evening, I arrived at the restaurant to find significant changes to the dining room layout, changes I hadn't been consulted about. The intimate four-top tables I had carefully selected had been replaced with larger communal tables in the center of the room. Amanda suggested this would create a more social atmosphere, Mom explained when I asked. Isn't it lovely? More like a true Italian family dining experience. The new layout reduced our seating capacity by 12 covers per service, a significant revenue impact that apparently hadn't been considered. Rather than point this out immediately, I decided to monitor the situation. Around the same time, Jason became increasingly distant. My calls went to voicemail. Our traditional Sunday sibling brunches were repeatedly canceled. When we did interact at the restaurant, there was a new defensiveness in his posture, as if anticipating criticism. Small exclusions accumulated. I discovered my parents and Jason had visited potential locations for a second Wilson's without mentioning it to me. Family dinners occurred that I learned about only through social media posts. Chef Antonio mentioned a menu planning session I hadn't been invited to. I thought you knew, he said, confusion evident in his expression. Amanda led the meeting. She said you were too busy with your consulting business to attend. I had never indicated anything of the sort. The financial aspects of the restaurant also began showing concerning patterns. Reviewing the books, I noticed increased spending in categories I didn't recognize. New vendor relationships had been established without discussion. A premium liquor order, nearly double our usual spend, appeared with Amanda's name as the authorizing signature. When I raised these discrepancies during our next meeting, Jason immediately tensed. Amanda's been helping me streamline operations, he said defensively. These are necessary improvements. I'm sure they are, I replied carefully. I just need to understand the strategy behind them since they impact our bottom line. What Samantha means, Mom interjected with an uncomfortable laugh, is that she likes to stay informed. We appreciate your help, of course, Amanda. The subject was changed before I received any substantive answers. 3 scheduled business meetings were canceled in April, all via text messages from my mother with vague explanations about scheduling conflicts. When we finally met in May, Amanda presented a complete summer marketing plan that superseded the strategy one had developed months earlier. We took the liberty of moving forward since you've been so busy, she explained with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jason and I worked on this together. The plan was flashy but fundamentally flawed, focusing on promotions that would attract one-time visitors rather than building our loyal customer base. The projected costs exceeded our marketing budget by 40% with no clear ROI analysis. I expressed my concerns professionally, offering specific alternatives that would achieve similar goals within our budget constraints. Jason's face flushed with anger. Just because it's not your idea doesn't make it wrong, he snapped. Amanda has actually worked in restaurants, not just consulted for corporate clients. The meeting ended awkwardly, with my parents avoiding eye contact. As I gathered my materials, I overheard Amanda whisper to Jason, she always has to be the smartest person in the room, doesn't she? Despite mounting evidence that something was seriously wrong, I maintained faith in our family bond. These were growing pains, I told myself. Amanda was new to our dynamic. Things would normalize once everyone adjusted. I couldn't have been more wrong. By the 8th month of Amanda's relationship with Jason, her influence over my family had grown from concerning to alarming. My parents, once eager for my business advice, now prefaced every discussion with "Amanda thinks," or "Amanda suggested." During a routine inventory review, I discovered we were overstocking certain premium liquors that weren't moving quickly enough to justify the expense. When I raised this issue, Dad immediately became defensive. Amanda explained that these brands create a perception of luxury, he said. She says customers notice these things even if they don't order them. That might be true in hotel bars, I countered, but our data shows our customers prefer our house-made limoncello and local craft options. We're tying up capital unnecessarily. Mom sighed heavily. Samantha, sometimes business isn't just about spreadsheets and data. It's about feeling and atmosphere. Amanda understands that intangible element. The implication was clear. My expertise was too cold, too calculated, while Amanda offered a more intuitive approach. Never mind that my cold calculations had increased their profitability by 40% and created a sustainable business model. The following week, I discovered my marketing budget had been reallocated without my knowledge. The food photographer I'd scheduled, whose work had dramatically increased our social media engagement, had been canceled. Instead, Amanda had hired her friend, an aspiring photographer with a minimal portfolio at a higher rate. Jason approved it, was the only explanation I received. My brother, who once valued my opinion above all others, now questioned my every suggestion. During a discussion about our winter menu, I recommended keeping our 3 best-selling pasta dishes while rotating seasonal specials. That's playing it safe, Jason said dismissively. Amanda thinks we should revamp the entire menu quarterly to stay relevant. Complete menu overhauls confuse regular customers and increase food costs, I explained. Gradual evolution maintains our identity while keeping things fresh. See, this is your problem, Jason replied, his tone condescending. You're too rigid. Amanda says restaurants need to be agile in today's market. The personal exclusions became more blatant. My parents celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary with a party at the restaurant. I learned about it the day after when a staff member mentioned what a lovely event it had been. We kept it small, Mom explained when I called, guilt evident in her voice. Just immediate family and a few close friends. I'm not immediate family? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. Of course you are, honey. We just... Amanda had already arranged everything, and she only reserved the small private dining room. There wasn't really space. There wasn't space for me at my parents' anniversary celebration in the restaurant I had financed. The message couldn't have been clearer if it had been skywritten. 3 scheduled business meetings were simply not held, without notification. When I arrived at the restaurant at the usual Monday morning time, I'd find the office empty or, worse, Amanda sitting at the desk, offering a surprised, "Oh, were we meeting today? Everyone's out right now." I began hearing concerning feedback from longtime customers. Margaret Fleming, who had dined weekly at Wilson's since our opening, pulled me aside one evening. "Something's different, Samantha," she said quietly. "The portions are smaller, the service is rushed, and last week they were out of your grandmother's tiramisu. They offered some deconstructed version instead that wasn't nearly as good." I thanked her and investigated immediately. The portion control had been Amanda's suggestion to reduce food costs. The deconstructed desserts were her attempt to modernize our offerings. Both changes had been implemented without discussion at any meeting I'd attended. Financial review became increasingly difficult as receipts went missing and expense categories were merged in our accounting system. When I requested access to the complete records, Jason accused me of micromanaging. "We're not your employees," he said bitterly. "This is a family business, not your personal consulting project." The irony of his statement, given my financial contribution and unpaid professional services, was apparently lost on him. In late April, I discovered a credit application had been submitted in the restaurant's name for a significant expansion loan. This major financial decision had occurred without my knowledge, despite my 30% ownership. When confronted, my father seemed genuinely confused. "I thought you knew." Amanda helped Jason with the paperwork. They said it was time to grow the business. And my investment doesn't entitle me to participate in that decision? I asked. Dad had the grace to look uncomfortable. Of course it does, Sammy. There's just been some communication issues lately. Amanda says you're so busy with your other clients that we shouldn't bother you with every little thing. $100,000 loan isn't a little thing, Dad. He patted my hand in that patronizing way that had always irritated me. Let's table this discussion for the family meeting on Sunday. Everyone will be there, and we can clear the air. Sunday arrived, and I prepared a comprehensive presentation addressing my concerns, both operational and interpersonal. I arrived at the restaurant at the agreed time to find it closed, lights off, doors locked. My calls went unanswered. Hours later, Jason texted, "Meeting canceled." Something came up. That evening, Instagram revealed what had come up. My parents, Jason, and Amanda had spent the day at a local winery. Photos showed them laughing over lunch, touring the vineyard, and participating in a blending session. The final image, posted by Amanda, showed them raising glasses with the caption, "Sunday fun day with my future in-laws." So blessed to be part of this amazing family. The anxiety that had been building in my chest for months crystallized into something harder, colder. This wasn't miscommunication or adjustment difficulties. This was systematic exclusion. Still, I held on to hope that direct communication could resolve the situation. I scheduled a private dinner with my parents, away from the restaurant, away from Amanda's influence. They agreed readily enough, seeming almost relieved at the opportunity to speak freely. Over appetizers, I calmly outlined my concerns about both the business operations and the family dynamics. I feel like I'm being pushed out of decisions I should be part of, I explained. And more painfully, I feel like I'm being pushed out of the family. Mom reached for my hand. "Oh, Samantha, that's not true. We love you so much. It's just..." She trailed off, exchanging glances with Dad. "It's just what?" I prompted. Dad cleared his throat. "Amanda has brought some fresh ideas to the restaurant, and she makes Jason so happy. Sometimes your directness can come across as criticism." My directness saved the business multiple times, I reminded them. And I've been nothing but supportive of their relationship. I just expect professional courtesy and family inclusion. Of course, Mom said quickly. "We'll do better with communication. And we have that big family dinner planned for Sunday. We'll all talk more then." I left feeling cautiously optimistic. Sunday's dinner would be a new beginning. A chance to reset boundaries and expectations. I couldn't have anticipated how drastically wrong I was. The week leading up to Sunday's dinner, I made extra efforts to be conciliatory. I complimented Amanda's new dessert presentation when visiting the restaurant. I sent Jason research supporting a marketing initiative he'd mentioned. I dropped off my mother's favorite flowers just because. Each gesture was received with seeming appreciation, reinforcing my hope that Sunday would mark a positive turning point. On Saturday afternoon, I texted my mother, looking forward to dinner tomorrow. Should I bring anything? No response came until Sunday morning. A single message that would irrevocably alter my relationship with my family. "You weren't invited to dinner. Your brother's girlfriend doesn't like you." I stared at my phone, certain I'd misunderstood. This couldn't possibly be real. I called immediately, but the call went to voicemail. I texted back, "Mom, what are you talking about? We discussed this dinner on Tuesday." Her response came minutes later. "Amanda organized this dinner to announce their engagement. She doesn't want tension or negativity. Jason agrees it's better if you're not there. Maybe next time." The room seemed to tilt sideways. My brother was getting engaged, and I was explicitly uninvited from the celebration. Because his girlfriend didn't like me. As if reading my thoughts, my phone buzzed with a message from Jason. "Sam, please don't make this difficult. Amanda feels uncomfortable around you, and this is her special day. You're always judging her and questioning her decisions. Just give us this one night without your criticism. Before I could process this betrayal, my father weighed in. Samantha, we love you, but you need to respect Jason and Amanda's wishes. Family means supporting each other's happiness. We can celebrate with you another time. 3 separate messages, 3 individual choices to exclude me from a family milestone. And the justification? Amanda's comfort was more important than my inclusion in my own family. I sank onto my couch, physically ill with the realization that the people I loved most in the world, the people whose dreams I had sacrificed to support, had collectively decided I was disposable. In that moment of clarity, I saw the past 8 months for what they truly were, a systematic campaign to diminish my role, my voice, and ultimately my presence in both the business and the family. Amanda hadn't just wanted my input disregarded, she wanted me gone entirely. And my family had chosen her comfort over my belonging. The text messages continued to arrive, each one twisting the knife deeper. Mom, please understand, we're trying to keep peace in the family. Dad, don't overreact, Sammy. It's just one dinner. Jason, you're making this about you, as usual. This is Amanda's and my moment. With shaking hands, I opened my laptop and pulled up the restaurant's financial records. 3 years of my life. $320,000 of my money. Countless hours of unpaid professional services. All to support a dream that wasn't even mine, a dream I had embraced purely out of love for my family. The same family that now found me too unpleasant to include in a dinner table. I navigated to the folder containing every transaction record, equipment purchases, renovation expenses, marketing costs, payroll supplements during slow months. 101 separate receipts representing my investment in people who had just demonstrated I meant nothing to them. Next, I opened my banking app and systematically canceled every recurring payment to Wilson's accounts, the monthly marketing budget, the quarterly equipment maintenance fund, the premium reservation system subscription. One by one, I severed the financial ties that had bound us together. My phone continued to buzz with messages, but I no longer read them. Instead, I called my attorney. Elizabeth, I need your help with a business dissolution, I said when she answered. The consulting firm? What's happened? She asked, concerned. No, my investment in Wilson's. I need to formally withdraw and protect myself legally. Elizabeth had advised against the informal arrangement from the beginning. To her credit, she didn't say, I told you so. Instead, she said, I'll draft the necessary paperwork immediately. In the meantime, secure copies of all financial records and correspondence. After ending the call, I returned to my digital files. One by one, I moved the 101 receipts to a secure cloud folder for legal purposes, then deleted them from my personal records. Each deletion felt like cutting a string that had tied me to an illusion, the illusion that financial sacrifice could purchase belonging in my own family. The final receipt, for the initial restaurant purchase, was the hardest to delete. I remembered the day we'd signed the papers, my parents' tears of joy, Jason's excited plans for the future. This is the beginning of the Wilson family legacy, Dad had proclaimed. A legacy that apparently had no place for me. With my finger hovering over the delete button, my phone rang. It was my mother. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Perhaps they'd reconsidered. Perhaps they recognized the cruelty of their actions. Samantha, what have you done? She demanded without preamble. The reservation system is saying our account is deactivated, and the marketing agency called saying the automatic payment failed. No apology. No recognition of how their actions had hurt me. Just concern about the immediate financial consequences. I've terminated my investment in Wilson's, I replied, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. As you've made it clear I'm not part of the family business, or the family, it seemed appropriate. You can't do that, she exclaimed. We have operations depending on those systems. This is exactly the kind of vindictive behavior Amanda was worried about. Her words confirmed everything. In their narrative, I was the villain. Amanda was the victim. And my family had chosen sides definitively. I'm sending formal dissolution paperwork this week, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. My attorney will be in touch about repayment terms. Repayment? We can't possibly repay $300,000. You said it was an investment, not a loan. It was an investment in a family business. As I'm no longer considered family, the terms have changed. I ended the call and blocked all their numbers. Then I returned to my computer and deleted the final receipt. 3 years of sacrifice, erased with a single click. My reply to their original message, the text informing me I wasn't welcome at my brother's engagement dinner, had been a single word, okay. It wasn't agreement. It wasn't acceptance. It was acknowledgement that finally, after months of evidence, I understood exactly where I stood. Outside family. Unwanted investor. Disposable daughter. Lesson learned. In the immediate aftermath of what I now refer to as the text, I entered a strange state of calm productivity. With my attorney Elizabeth's guidance, I meticulously documented every aspect of my investment in Wilson's. The 101 receipts I had deleted from my personal records remained safely backed up for legal purposes, each one representing a financial commitment made in good faith to people who had broken that faith. Elizabeth advised me of my options. Given the lack of a formal signed agreement, we have 2 potential approaches. We can pursue full repayment of your investment with interest, which would likely force them to sell the restaurant, or we can negotiate a structured settlement that allows the business to continue while protecting your interests. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to destroy my parents' livelihood. Draft settlement terms that are firm but not punitive, I instructed. I want what's fair, not vengeance. While Elizabeth worked on the legal documents, the fallout from my financial withdrawal became immediately apparent. My phone, though blocked to their calls, filled with voicemails and texts sent from unknown numbers, friends' phones, and the restaurant line. The credit card processor is down, Dad reported in one message. The company says you were the account guarantor and removed authorization. The food photographer canceled the menu shoot, Mom lamented in another. She said her contract was with you personally. Jason's messages oscillated between anger and panic. You're punishing us because your feelings got hurt? Real mature, Sam. And later, the weekend bookings are disappearing because the reservation system is down. This is people's livelihoods you're playing with. I hadn't considered the staff who might be affected by the disruption. Immediately, I authorized a one-time payment to restore essential services and included a note. This temporary restoration is for the benefit of your employees only. Permanent solutions are your responsibility going forward. On the 3rd day after the text, an email arrived from Amanda. I hope you're satisfied with yourself. Your childish reaction to not being included in one dinner has created chaos for everyone. Jason is devastated by your betrayal. Your parents are blaming me for the rift, which is exactly what you wanted. If you ever cared about your family, you'll stop this financial hostage-taking and behave like an adult. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to someone who had systematically worked to eliminate me from my own family and now had the audacity to claim victimhood. Elizabeth delivered the settlement proposal on Friday. I would formally relinquish my ownership stake in exchange for a structured repayment of $250,000 over 5 years. Significantly less than my actual investment, but enough to establish consequences while allowing the business to survive. This is generous, Samantha, Elizabeth noted. You're entitled to pursue the full amount. I know, I acknowledged. But this isn't about money. It never was. The settlement documents were delivered to Wilson's by courier the following Monday. I included a brief personal note. This represents a clean break and fair resolution. The reduced settlement amount is the last gift I will offer. Their reaction was predictably chaotic. Dad called my office directly, bypassing my cell phone block. Samantha, you can't be serious. We can't possibly meet these payment terms. The restaurant will go under. The terms represent less than my actual investment, I replied calmly. I've included the documentation for reference. You're welcome to counter with an alternative proposal. We're family, he insisted, his voice breaking. Families don't do this to each other. Families don't exclude members from significant celebrations because someone's girlfriend doesn't like them, I countered. Families don't dismiss 3 years of financial and professional support without a second thought. You made your choice, Dad. I'm simply responding accordingly. A tense silence followed. Your mother misses you, he finally said, his tone softer. We all do. You missed me so much you held an engagement dinner without me? Please don't insult my intelligence. 2 days later, their attorney contacted Elizabeth with a counterproposal, repayment of $150,000 over 7 years, with the first payment deferred for 6 months. Elizabeth recommended rejection, but I accepted with one modification: mandatory financial counseling for the business. They need to learn to operate within their means, I explained. Otherwise, they'll be in the same position in 6 months. The agreement was signed the following week. I didn't attend the signing, sending Elizabeth in my place. According to her, my parents looked haggard and remorseful, while Jason appeared sullen but resigned. Amanda wasn't present. News of my withdrawal from Wilson's spread quickly through the restaurant industry. Chef Antonio, who had become a friend over the years, reached out. They're struggling, Sam. Not just financially, but operationally. Without your systems and oversight, things are falling apart. I wished him well but maintained my distance. His updates continued sporadically. The marketing consultant quit after non-payment. The premium liquor suppliers placed the account on credit hold. Weekend bookings had decreased by 30%. Most painfully, he reported that longtime customers frequently asked about me, and my parents had instructed staff to say I was focusing on other opportunities. The erasure of my contribution continued, even as they struggled with its absence. 3 weeks after settlement, an unexpected email arrived from Jason. Amanda and I broke up. I know that doesn't change anything, but I thought you should know. I didn't respond immediately, needing time to process this development. 2 days later, he elaborated. She left when the money problems started. Said she didn't sign up for a failing business. You were right about her all along. I'm sorry I didn't see it. His apology, while notable, addressed only his misjudgment of Amanda, not his betrayal of me. It would take more than recognition of her character flaws to rebuild what we had lost. The first settlement payment arrived on schedule, accompanied by a handwritten note from my mother. We miss you more than words can say. The restaurant means nothing without you in our lives. Please give us a chance to make this right. I filed the check and discarded the note. By the 3-month mark, the patterns had become clear. Wilson's was surviving but struggling. My parents and Jason sent regular messages expressing regret and requesting reconciliation. I maintained my distance, focusing instead on my consulting business, which was thriving under my undivided attention. The emotional toll, however, was significant. I began seeing a therapist to process the grief of family estrangement. Dr. Marshall helped me recognize that my investment in Wilson's had been partially motivated by a desire to secure my place in the family, a place that should have been guaranteed by love alone. You can't purchase belonging, she observed gently. And people who would exclude you because someone doesn't like you aren't offering true acceptance anyway. As I worked through my grief and anger, I realized that while my financial withdrawal had been necessary, my emotional well-being required something more, not reconciliation on their terms, but resolution on mine. After careful consideration, I composed a single email addressed to my parents and Jason. I am not ready for personal contact, but I am willing to meet with a family therapist present to discuss the events of the past year and establish whether a relationship is possible going forward. This is not a commitment to reconciliation, but an opportunity for honest communication. Their response was immediate and unanimous acceptance. The healing process would be long and uncertain, but the first step had been taken. Not from financial necessity or familial obligation, but from my choice to determine what relationship, if any, I wanted with the people who had both loved and betrayed me. The 101 deleted receipts remained gone from my personal records. Some investments, I had learned, could not be recouped. But the most valuable lesson had been purchased at full price. Self-respect is non-negotiable, and true family would never ask you to sacrifice it. The first 3 months of estrangement from my family were the hardest. Despite their betrayal, 34 years of connection couldn't be severed without pain. I found myself reaching for my phone to share good news, only to remember they were no longer my first calls. Sundays, once reserved for family dinners, stretched endlessly before me, empty hours I didn't know how to fill. Dr. Marshall, my therapist, guided me through the grief process. "You're mourning not just the relationship you had," she explained, "but the relationship you thought you had. The family you believed would never abandon you did exactly that." Those words hit with devastating accuracy. I had built my identity around being the responsible daughter, the supportive sister, the family problem solver. Without those roles, who was I? The answer emerged gradually as I reconnected with myself. I joined a hiking group that explored New England trails every weekend. I took cooking classes, reclaiming my love for food that Wilson's had temporarily tainted. I mentored young women entrepreneurs through a local business incubator, finding purpose in helping others achieve their dreams. My consulting firm flourished with my undivided attention. I hired 2 additional consultants and expanded our client base to include international companies. Work that had once been a means to support my family's dreams became the vehicle for achieving my own. True friends emerged from the wreckage of my family relationships. Melissa, my college roommate who had warned me against investing in Wilson's, never once said, "I told you so." Instead, she invited me for holiday celebrations with her family, ensuring I wasn't alone during those difficult milestones. Chef Antonio maintained contact, though he eventually left Wilson's for a position at a prestigious Boston restaurant. "They're not the same without you," he reported during our occasional coffee meetings. "Your parents seem lost, and Jason is drowning in operational details he never bothered to learn." I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, only sadness for what could have been. The monthly settlement payments arrived punctually, each one representing both my parents' commitment to making amends and the permanent alteration of our relationship. Business transactions had replaced family bonds. According to Antonio, Wilson's was struggling but surviving. My parents had downsized operations, closing 2 days per week and eliminating lunch service. Jason had taken restaurant management courses at the local community college, education I had offered to provide years earlier. 3 months after what I now called the text, I received an email from my mother that differed from her previous pleas. Instead of emotional appeals or expressions of missing me, she wrote, "I realize now that saying, 'Amanda doesn't like you,' was not just hurtful but revealing of our failure as parents. We prioritized a temporary relationship over our permanent one with you. There is no justification for that choice. I am deeply ashamed." Her acknowledgement of the specific betrayal, rather than general expressions of regret, marked the first genuine step toward potential reconciliation. I didn't respond immediately, but I discussed it with Dr. Marshall in our next session. "Do you want a relationship with your family?" she asked directly. Not out of obligation or habit, but true desire. The question required serious reflection. Despite everything, these people were woven into the fabric of my identity. The good memories remained alongside the painful ones. "Yes," I finally answered, "but not the relationship we had before. Something healthier with boundaries and mutual respect." This realization led to my email proposing a meeting with a family therapist present. Their immediate acceptance suggested they too recognized the need for professional guidance in rebuilding what had been broken. Our first family therapy session was scheduled for exactly 100 days after the text. I arrived early, anxious but resolute, having prepared extensively with Dr. Marshall for this encounter. My parents and Jason entered together, their faces showing a mixture of hope and apprehension. They looked older, somehow. Dad's shoulders slumped in a way I hadn't noticed before. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them in her lap. Jason couldn't meet my eyes. Dr. Winters, the family therapist, established ground rules. No interrupting, no dismissing others' feelings, absolute honesty. This isn't about assigning blame, she explained, but about understanding each person's experience and determining a path forward, if one is possible. I spoke first, describing my experience of gradual exclusion following Amanda's arrival, culminating in the devastating text message. What hurt most wasn't just being uninvited to an important family event, I explained, my voice steady despite the emotion behind it. It was the justification that someone who had known me for 8 months disliking me was sufficient reason to exclude me from my own family. My mother wept openly. Dad stared at his hands. Jason's face flushed with shame. I invested in Wilson's because I believed in you, I continued. Not just financially, but emotionally. I gave my time, expertise, and heart to building something for our family. To discover that I wasn't actually considered essential to that family destroyed the foundation of our relationship. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Finally, my father spoke. There's nothing I can say to justify what we did, he admitted, his voice breaking. We got caught up in Jason's excitement about Amanda, afraid to disappoint him after years of watching him struggle to find his path. We convinced ourselves that one dinner wasn't important enough to create conflict. We were terribly, unforgivably wrong. Mom added, when Amanda said she felt judged by you, we should have recognized the manipulation. Instead, we allowed her to drive a wedge between us. By the time we realized what was happening, the damage was done, and your justified reaction only confirmed her narrative that you were the problem. Jason finally raised his eyes to meet mine. I wanted to believe Amanda loved me for myself, he said quietly. But she loved the idea of running a restaurant without doing the work to build it. When the money problems started after you left, she started talking about cutting our losses. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Their collective apology seemed genuine, but I remained cautious. I appreciate your acknowledgments, I said carefully. But rebuilding trust requires more than recognizing past mistakes. It requires change. Over the following months, we attended weekly family therapy sessions. Painful truths emerged: Jason's long-standing resentment of my success, Dad's discomfort with my financial power in the family dynamic, Mom's fear that my independence meant eventual abandonment. None of these issues justified their actions, but understanding them helped contextualize the vulnerability that Amanda had exploited. Gradually, tentatively, we began rebuilding our relationship on new terms. I established clear boundaries about my involvement with Wilson's. I would provide occasional business advice, but would never again be financially invested. My parents accepted this limitation without protest, acknowledging the wounds that remained too fresh for deeper engagement. 6 months after our first therapy session, I attended Sunday dinner at my parents' home. Not at the restaurant, which remained a complicated space for me emotionally. The conversation was sometimes awkward, occasionally lapsing into silence when we encountered topics that reminded us of the breach. But there were also moments of genuine connection, laughter over shared memories, and cautious hope for the future. Wilson stabilized under my parents' scaled-back operational model. The settlement payments continued without interruption, each one acknowledging the debt, both financial and emotional, that remained outstanding. Jason found a position with a restaurant group where he could learn the business properly, without the safety net of family ownership. A year after the text, I finally felt ready to visit Wilson's again. The restaurant had changed. Smaller, more intimate, less ambitious in scope. My mother greeted me with tears in her eyes, but respected my request for a regular table rather than the family spotlight. As I savored my grandmother's lasagna recipe, still on the menu after all this time, I reflected on the painful but necessary journey of the past year. The $320,000 investment had purchased something valuable after all, not the restaurant itself, but the painful lesson that self-respect isn't negotiable and true family would never demand its sacrifice. The deleted receipts remained gone from my personal records. I no longer needed physical evidence of what I had contributed or what had been taken from me. The experience had been irrevocably incorporated into who I had become, stronger, clearer about my boundaries, unwilling to purchase love at the cost of dignity. My relationship with my family would never again be blindly trusting. The innocent belief in unconditional belonging had been permanently altered. But something new and potentially more authentic was taking its place, a relationship between adults who had hurt each other, learned from that pain, and chosen to build something different from the ashes. As I finished my meal, Dad approached tentatively. "Good to have you here, Sammy," he said, using my childhood nickname for the first time since our estrangement. "Good to be here," I replied, and meant it. Some betrayals can never be undone. Some investments never yield the expected returns. But healing, I discovered, doesn't require perfection or complete restoration. It requires honesty, accountability, and the courage to build something new when the old structures have failed. The most valuable lesson wasn't about family or business at all. It was about self-worth, recognizing that I deserved to be valued not for what I provided, but simply for who I was. That recognition, painful as it was to achieve, was worth every penny of the $320,000 and every one of the 101 deleted receipts. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you've ever had to make difficult choices to protect your self-worth, I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments. How did you know when it was time to draw the line? What helped you heal afterward? Like this video if my story resonated with you, subscribe for more authentic life experiences, and share with someone who might need to hear that their value isn't determined by how others treat them. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to establish what you will and won't accept in your relationships.